Congratulations, Major Vickers.
Major? Why, thank you, sir. I haven't seen it in orders yet.
You will tomorrow.
Did you know many of the Golden Age actors were not just aiders and entertainers? They were also involved in espionage and covert operations. They used their fame to perfectly cover their status. In this immersive journey, we'll uncover 23 Golden Age actors who were secretly spies. Some undertook confirmed missions for the Allies. Others aided intelligence agencies in quieter ways. And a few have stories cloaked in rumor and legend. Through declassified documents, wartime records, and whispered anecdotes, these stories will shine a spotlight on the hidden espionage exploits of cinema's most iconic figures. Harry Houdini, the master escape artist turned secret agent. Picture Europe in the early 1900s. Harry Houdini, the world-famous escape artist, is touring from city to city, astounding audiences with daring stunts. Unbeknownst to those cheering crowds, Houdini may have been performing a second act behind the scenes, as a spy. Though primarily known as a magician and silent film actor, Houdini was rumored to use his travels as cover for espionage. Both Scotland Yard and the U.S. Secret Service were said to have enlisted his help in the years around World War I. It sounds like the plot of a penny thriller. By day, a showman dangling from ropes in a straitjacket. By night, an undercover agent gathering intel from local police, and even infiltrating dangerous circles. Houdini's unique talents made him an ideal covert operative. Fluent in multiple languages and adept at slipping out of handcuffs and locked cells, he could gain access to places others could not. Allegedly, during one mission, Houdini would stroll into foreign police stations, insist on being locked up to prove his escape abilities, then proceed to wow the local law enforcement, while secretly observing their procedures and records. According to one account, he even infiltrated Russian police stations this way, turning his escapades into opportunities to collect information for Western authorities. With his fame as a perfect alibi, he was the ultimate fly on the wall. People saw only the entertainer, never suspecting the spy. These cloak and dagger activities have never been officially confirmed, but historians have uncovered tantalizing hints. Biographers note that Houdini corresponded with British intelligence officers and offered his services. In later years, former agents recalled how the magician's reports helped them keep tabs on revolutionary groups and criminal gangs across Europe. Whether fully true or embellished over time, the image of Houdini as an international man of mystery endures. It adds a new dimension to his nickname, Master of Escape. Not just escaping ropes and chains, but perhaps slipping out of the clutches of enemy agents too. In the end, Harry Houdini's greatest trick may have been hiding a spy's heart under the guise of a showman, living proof that sometimes the most extraordinary feats happen off stage, unseen by the audience. Cary Grant, Hollywood's Nazi hunter in Tinseltown. In the 1940s, while Cary Grant's suave charm lit up cinema screens in films like His Girl Friday and Notorious, the British-born actor was leading a very different kind of life off-screen. Cary Grant, the epitome of the debonair Hollywood leading man, was secretly working as a spy hunter on American soil. At the height of World War II, Grant volunteered with a covert British intelligence operation in the U.S., using his celebrity connections to root out Nazi sympathizers in Hollywood. The British government had established the British Security Coordination in New York, a clandestine organization headed by spymaster William Stevenson. Its mission: protect British interests and sway American public opinion to support the Allied cause. Cary Grant was recruited into this effort, essentially becoming an undercover asset embedded in the film colony of Los Angeles. Armed with his dashing persona and easy access to high society, Grant kept his ears open at parties, film sets, and studio lots. He monitored the conversations and activities of fellow actors, directors, and producers, anyone who might be parroting Nazi propaganda, or worse. It wasn't just idle snooping. According to evidence uncovered decades later, Grant reported on colleagues such as Errol Flynn and even his friend Gary Cooper when suspicions arose about their political leanings. Grant would discreetly pass along intel about who was voicing anti-British or pro-German sympathies in Hollywood. By doing so, he helped foil potential Nazi influence operations in the American film industry. British reports indicate Grant's information was valuable enough that after the war, he was quietly awarded the King's Medal for Service in the cause of freedom, a recognition given to civilians who aided the Allies. Balancing this secret duty with his public life was no small feat. Grant continued making movies, even starring in Hitchcock's Notorious as an agent infiltrating a Nazi spy ring, a case of art imitating life. On set and in society, he had to play the genial movie idol, all while noting which dinner guest spoke a little too admiringly of Adolf Hitler. It added an edge of real danger to Hollywood nightlife, but Cary Grant handled it with characteristic grace. Not once during the war did rumors of his real activities leak out.
Oh, poor monkey face. Here I am thinking only of myself and forgetting all about you. You liked him too, didn't you?
To his fellow stars, he was simply Cary, impeccably dressed, witty, and unflappable, never realizing he was quietly tallying their patriotic fervor. In retrospect, Grant's life seems as thrilling as one of his films. The handsome hero, risking his safety for the Allied cause, stalking villains in tuxedo, and tales through the mansions of Beverly Hills. It's a story that remained hidden for years. Today, declassified files confirm that Cary Grant truly was Hollywood's gentleman spy, proving that sometimes the most heroic roles are the ones never advertised to the public. Marlene Dietrich, the siren who sang for the OSS. Sultry, glamorous, and fiercely independent, Marlene Dietrich was one of the most iconic actresses of the Golden Age. Famous for Morocco and Shanghai Express, she was the very image of Hollywood allure. But during World War II, Dietrich put her smoky voice and magnetic presence to work for more than just entertainment. She became a weapon of psychological warfare against the Nazis. As an agent for the OSS, Dietrich made secret contributions to the Allied war effort that only came to light decades later. Dietrich's path to espionage was deeply personal. Born in Germany, she had risen to fame in Berlin before moving to Hollywood in the 1930s.
How do you do things like this? Magician. You brought this girl here?
Yes, I brought her here.
She publicly rejected the Third Reich. Adolf Hitler himself was a fan and invited her back to Germany, but she refused and became an American citizen in 1939. Once the U.S. entered the war, Dietrich was determined to aid in defeating Hitler's regime. Her opportunity came through the OSS, America's wartime intelligence agency. In 1944, OSS Chief William Wild Bill Donovan tapped Dietrich for a special mission in their morale operations branch. The assignment: use her voice to sap the fighting spirit of German soldiers. Under OSS direction, Dietrich recorded a series of Musak propaganda broadcasts, songs and messages aimed at German troops on the front lines. She lent her voice to nostalgic German love songs like Lily Marlene, singing in German in a longing, mournful tone. The idea was that homesick soldiers, hearing a familiar beloved movie star's voice crooning about love and home, might feel disillusioned about the war. These recordings were aired via radio and loudspeakers to enemy lines as part of Operation Musak, intended to encourage desertion and defection. It was psychological warfare through the melody. And who better than Marlene Dietrich, whose singing had melted hearts worldwide, to deliver it? Dietrich didn't stop there. She tirelessly entertained Allied troops as well, touring with the USO to perform for soldiers in North Africa and Europe. Allied commanders noted that the mere presence of this silver screen goddess boosted morale. Meanwhile, the FBI kept a file on Dietrich, initially suspicious that her German origins might indicate a double agent. Those suspicions were unfounded. In fact, FBI documents later showed she was scrutinized as a possible German spy, even as she was secretly working against Germany. J. Edgar Hoover eventually cleared her, and her loyalty to America was never truly in doubt. Her clandestine OSS work proved where her heart lay. By war's end, Dietrich's contributions earned high recognition. She received the U.S. Medal of Freedom for her extraordinary service, one of the highest honors given to civilians. The citation praised her courageous support of Allied troops and her anti-Nazi broadcasts. When asked later about her wartime role, Dietrich was modest, saying she did nothing out of the ordinary. But history tells otherwise. Marlene Dietrich turned her celebrity into a weapon, singing enemy soldiers to sleep with lullabies of peace, and showing that even a femme fatale could serve as a spy. The siren of the screen had become a siren of freedom. Josephine Baker, the Jazz Age, diva turned Allied spy. The scene, an elegant nightclub in wartime Paris. On stage, draped in shimmering sequins, Josephine Baker dances and sings with spellbinding charisma. The crowd is transfixed. Among them, in occupied France, are German officers sipping champagne. Little do they know that the glamorous star entertaining them is also watching and listening for secrets that could help bring about the Nazis' defeat. Josephine Baker, the African-American expatriate superstar of the Jazz Age, was a spy for the French resistance. Using her celebrity as cover, she became one of World War II's most unlikely secret agents. By the 1930s, Baker had become the toast of Paris. Famed for her sensational dance routines and her powerful voice, she moved in elite circles. When World War II erupted, Baker didn't flee. Instead, she volunteered to aid France. She was recruited by the Deuxième Bureau, the French military intelligence service, in 1940. Her mission was as audacious as it sounds: attend parties and diplomatic events, charm high-ranking Axis officials, and gather information. Baker's fame granted her access to embassy soirees, high society salons, and even gatherings at neutral locations where Italian, Japanese, and German representatives mingled. She would cozy up to officials, using flirtation and wit to coax out gossip, troop movements, invasion plans, supply routes, whatever tidbits might slip from loose lips over cocktails. But how to pass these secrets on? Baker devised ingenious methods. On her musical sheets, amid the notes of her songs, she would write secret notes in invisible ink. A phrase of music here might conceal a schedule of enemy troop transfers. She also used her travel as a performer to courier messages. Josephine toured neutral nations, carrying classified information pinned inside her undergarments or tucked in sheet music. Border agents were unlikely to search France's most famous entertainer too closely. On at least one occasion, she smuggled documents out of North Africa by pinning them inside her dress, counting on her celebrity status to avoid detailed inspection. The risks were enormous. If caught, she would have faced imprisonment or execution as a spy. Yet Baker's courage was formidable. She famously said that France had shown her love and equality, and she was determined to fight for liberté, égalité, fraternité. Indeed, throughout the war she provided shelter for free French resistance members, hid weapons and refugees in her chateau, and continued gathering intelligence under the guise of organizing shows. Her contributions were far from trivial. French military archives later revealed that information Josephine Baker passed along was of significant value to Allied commanders. She had effectively become Agent Josephine, with a code name and reports filed in invisible ink. After the liberation of France, Josephine Baker was heralded as a hero. She was awarded the Croix de Guerre and the Resistance Medal by General Charles de Gaulle, honoring her invaluable work as an intelligence agent. It's almost poetic. A woman who broke barriers as a black entertainer in the 1920s went on to break Nazi codes of silence in the 1940s.
Et voici Joséphine, oui, le lieutenant Josephine Baker, qui rapporte d'une tournée en Égypte un chèque de
Baker maintained her celebrity facade with aplomb. Audiences saw only the dazzling star, while behind that radiant smile, she carried the secrets of an empire. In Josephine's own words, "I have two loves, my country and Paris." During World War II, those loves fueled her clandestine battle for freedom, making her life story one of the most extraordinary spy thrillers never filmed. Yet, Greta Garbo, the enigmatic star who volunteered to kill Hitler. Greta Garbo had an aura of mystery like no other actress. With her haunting eyes and terse line, "I want to be alone," she became the very symbol of Hollywood mystique. During World War II, however, that mystique took on a dangerous reality. Greta Garbo, one of the most famous women in the world in the 1930s, was rumored to have been involved in secret Allied intelligence plans, including an astonishing plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler. While aspects of Garbo's spy story blur the line between fact and legend, one thing is clear: she despised the Nazis, and she didn't remain idle as Europe burned. Garbo was a Swedish-born star who had retired from films by the early 1940s, retreating to private life in New York. But behind the scenes, British intelligence reportedly saw potential in the reclusive actress. According to some accounts, MI6 agents reached out to Garbo, knowing Hitler's well-documented infatuation with her. The British idea was daring. What if Garbo accepted Hitler's invitation and used the opportunity to eliminate him? As incredible as it sounds, Garbo later claimed she agreed in principle.
You like me just a little bit?
Your general appearance is not distasteful.
Thank you.
The whites of your eyes are clear. Your cornea is excellent.
She told a close friend years later, "If the war hadn't started when it did, I would have gone, and I would have taken a gun out of my purse and shot him. I'm the only person who would not have been searched." It was a chilling, matter-of-fact statement. Garbo believed her celebrity would grant her an audience with Hitler with minimal suspicion, giving her a chance to do the unthinkable. British spy master William Stevenson allegedly discussed such plans with Garbo through mutual contacts, like Hollywood producer Alexander Korda, who was himself an intelligence operative. By some telling, Garbo even traveled to England under the guise of considering a film, while in reality, liaising with British agents about possible missions. One plan involved using her influence on Sweden. Garbo had connections to the Swedish royal family, and British intelligence wanted to sway Sweden away from Nazi friendliness. Garbo could discreetly relay messages or help persuade Swedish officials to resist Nazi pressures. Though Greta Garbo never had to pull the trigger, the war's outbreak and shifting events rendered any assassination plot moot. These rumors underscore how seriously the Allies regarded her potential. Beyond assassination schemes, Garbo did make concrete contributions. She worked with the OSS to courier financial support to anti-Nazi forces in occupied Europe, and she helped arrange the safe passage of at least one important refugee. British records hint that Garbo's New York apartment was used as a meeting place for intelligence contacts during the war, a quiet refuge where information could be exchanged under cover of her famous seclusion. It's fitting that, even in espionage, Garbo remains an enigma. She never spoke publicly of any spy activities. Only second-hand accounts from friends and declassified tidbits from British archives have painted this shadowy picture. Skeptics point out that parts of her story have grown mythic. Was she really ready to shoot Hitler? Or was it a bit of wartime bravado shared among friends? We may never know the full truth. What we do know is that Garbo's hatred of Nazism was intense and genuine, and she used her resources to support the Allied cause where she could. Even the FBI noted the long-rumored idea that Garbo had been a spy for the British. In the annals of World War II spycraft, Greta Garbo stands as a symbol of what might have been. The screen goddess who shunned the spotlight might have traded her evening gowns for a trench coat and revolver. True or not, the very plausibility of the story speaks to the extraordinary times of the 1940s, when even Garbo, Hollywood's divine, was ready to come down from Olympus to do her part. In a way, the mystique of Garbo the spy only heightens her legend. She remains alone in our imagination, pistol in hand, poised to change history with one daring act, the ultimate role she never got to play. Noel Coward, the playwright who spied on the powerful. As witty as he was urbane, Noel Coward was a true Renaissance man of the entertainment world. A playwright, composer, actor, and singer, whose works like Private Lives and Blithe Spirit defined sophisticated theater in the 1930s. What the public didn't know was that this polished bon vivant was also an active spy for Britain during World War II, moving through high society with a martini in hand and a mission in mind. Coward himself quipped in later years, "Celebrity is a marvelous smokescreen." And he was right. Under that smokescreen, he gathered intelligence from the salons of Europe and the Americas, serving his country with the same verve he brought to the stage. Noel Coward's entry into espionage began even before the war. In 1938, with the storm clouds of Nazism darkening Europe, Coward was recruited by Sir Robert Van Sittart of the British Foreign Office as an unofficial agent. His task? Travel to cities like Paris, Berlin, and Vienna, ostensibly for concerts or play productions, and keep his ears open. Coward's reputation as an anti-appeasement voice made him a trusted asset. By August 1939, he formally joined the British Secret Intelligence Service, assigned to Elite Section D, which specialized in propaganda and subversive operations. In Paris, he set up a propaganda office just as war broke out, although he found that desk work ill-suited to his flamboyant talents. Soon, Coward was given a more fitting assignment: become an agent of influence in the United States. In 1940, long before America entered the war, Coward traveled to the U.S. under direction of the British government. His cover was essentially himself, the famous Noel Coward on tour. But his private goal was to use his charm and connections to help sway American elite opinion towards supporting Britain against Germany. President Franklin D. Roosevelt even invited Coward to the White House twice during that trip. Over cocktails, the playwright pitched Britain's plight and picked up on U.S. political currents. He also met in New York with William Stephenson, coordinating British intelligence efforts in the States. From 1940 to 1945, Coward zigzagged the globe on covert assignments. He traveled across the U.S., South America, and the Middle East, officially as a performer and goodwill ambassador, but unofficially reporting to London on everything from local politics to morale. In South America, for instance, he kept tabs on Nazi influence among high society there. In the Middle East, he met Allied officers and local leaders, quietly gauging sentiments. All the while, he maintained his cover brilliantly, hosting parties, giving interviews, even performing his songs like London Pride. The very things that made him famous, his quick wit and sparkling conversation, made him an excellent spy. People would gossip freely around him, perhaps trying to impress the great Noel Coward, not realizing he was mentally filing away useful details for British intelligence. It wasn't always smooth. Coward once joked that he was on the Nazi blacklist twice, once for being an alleged British spy, and once more for being a homosexual. The Gestapo indeed knew of him. Had he fallen into their hands, he'd have been in dire peril. Fortunately, his missions never led to capture. After the war, the British government thanked Noel Coward in a very private way. He was offered a knighthood in 1945 for his war work, which he declined at the time. He wryly noted that his espionage work was tedious, often involving more listening than action, but he understood its importance. In the end, Noel Coward's greatest role might well have been the one the public never saw: a real-life James Bond in tailored silk pajamas. The same man who wrote biting comedy of manners was eavesdropping in drawing rooms for King and Country. It's a testament to how every talent was harnessed in the war effort, even a sharp tongue and a sharper mind. Ever the showman, Coward later incorporated sly references to his spy days in his diaries and songs. But during the war, he kept mum. "If ever I told what I really did," he once hinted, "it would be the dullest saga of all time." Perhaps. Or perhaps it's that Noel Coward was simply too discreet a spy to ever dish on his own exploits. Either way, the world enjoyed his art, never realizing how it masked the art of espionage just beneath the surface. Christopher Lee, the World War II spy who became Dracula. Long before he donned a cape as Dracula, or dueled as the villainous Count Dooku in Star Wars, Sir Christopher Lee lived a life that could inspire its own action movie. Tall, steely, and aristocratic, Lee was in his early 20s when World War II engulfed Europe, and he answered the call with gusto. He volunteered for the Royal Air Force, but fate had a more clandestine path in store. Christopher Lee became an intelligence officer attached to the Special Operations Executive, Britain's top-secret Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. In later years, when asked about his wartime exploits, he would coyly respond, "I've seen many things I never want to discuss." This much is known. The man who would portray fictional spies and sorcerers on screen was, in his youth, a real spy hunter and Nazi fighter in the shadows of World War II. Lee's military career began in the RAF, where he was assigned to RAF intelligence due to his aptitude for languages and analysis. He was attached to No. 260 Squadron in North Africa as a liaison officer, working closely with the Special Operations Executive and other special forces operating behind enemy lines. In this role, Flight Lieutenant Lee coordinated missions with resistance groups and saboteurs. One cousin of his was even a founding member of the Special Air Service, and Christopher found himself moving in similar circles. According to his service records, he briefed and debriefed covert operatives, essentially acting as the bridge between spies in the field and Allied command. As the war progressed, Lee took part in the invasion of Italy and the push into the Balkans. He was present for some of the fiercest fighting, from North African deserts to the Gothic Line in Italy. There are accounts of him conducting reconnaissance missions and even participating in hunt and destroy operations against Nazi war criminals in the final days of the war. In one operation in Yugoslavia, Christopher Lee's job was to coordinate with local partisans, effectively acting as a spy in the field, liaising with communist guerrillas on behalf of the British SOE. The work was perilous. Not only did he face Axis forces, but also the shifting political sands of Eastern Europe. Lee contracted malaria at one point, but refused evacuation, determined to finish the job. One famous anecdote. While filming The Lord of the Rings decades later, Lee corrected director Peter Jackson on the sound a man makes when stabbed in the back. He coolly explained that he knew the sound firsthand from his wartime service. Jackson was stunned, a small glimpse of the hard realities Lee had seen. Indeed, Lee's service record confirms he was attached to the SOE's precursor of MI6 in the Balkans, and that he was mentioned in dispatches for distinguished service. When the war ended, he held the rank of flight lieutenant and had been decorated for his intelligence work. After 1945, Christopher Lee was at a crossroads. He could have continued in espionage. British intelligence reportedly wanted to keep him on. But with the Axis defeated, he chose a different form of drama: acting. The rest is cinematic history. Lee never boasted about his spy days, partly due to the Official Secrets Act, and partly out of gentlemanly discretion. However, he did occasionally let slip thrilling morsels, fighting alongside Gurkhas in Italy, for example, or skiing on surveillance missions in Finland during the Soviet invasion. Each tale seemed more incredible than the last, so much so that some skeptics later wondered if he embellished a bit. But official records and testimonials back up the core. Christopher Lee was an honest-to-goodness war hero spy. It's hard not to draw connections between Lee's secret past and his commanding screen presence. Perhaps facing real darkness in World War II gave him that unmistakable gravitas he later brought to villains like Scaramanga and Count Dracula. He once said, "I've seen evil. I know what it is." That wasn't a line from a script. It was a simple fact from the life of an actor who had truly lived on the knife edge of history. In the pantheon of actor spies, Sir Christopher Lee stands tall, proving that sometimes the men who play heroes and villains have walked among them in real life. Sterling Hayden, the Hollywood heartthrob who joined the OSS. During the early 1940s, Sterling Hayden was earning a reputation as the strapping, blonde leading man in Hollywood, sometimes billed as the most beautiful man in the movies. But as World War II raged, Hayden abruptly ditched the satin shirts and movie sets for a far grittier role: undercover agent of the OSS. This actor's wartime story reads like pure adventure fiction. Except it's true. He sailed the high seas ferrying weapons, slipped into fascist-occupied lands by night, and fought shoulder to shoulder with resistance fighters. Hayden's life temporarily eclipsed any screenplay, as he became one of the very few Hollywood actors to serve as a secret operative behind enemy lines. Sterling Hayden's path to espionage began with his love of the sea. Before acting, he'd been a schooner captain. After Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the U.S. Marines, but his skills caught the attention of William Wild Bill Donovan's Office of Strategic Services. Recruited in 1943, Hayden was soon operating under the alias John Hamilton, his new identity for clandestine work. The OSS assigned him to the Mediterranean theater, where his seafaring expertise was invaluable. Stationed in wartime Italy and Yugoslavia, Lieutenant Hayden organized secret runs to supply anti-fascist resistance groups. He headed a unit that ran a fleet of small boats along the Dalmatian coast, braving German patrols in the dead of night. These missions involved smuggling guns, ammo, and even OSS agents to the Yugoslav partisans, led by Josip Broz Tito. On one occasion, Hayden parachuted into Croatia to coordinate guerrilla activities, an experience he recounted with both pride and pain years later. Imagine the scene. A Hollywood star, camouflaged and coming down under a moonlit sky into rugged mountains, greeted not by autograph seekers, but by battle-hardened partisans. Hayden didn't just observe. He fought. He helped train the partisans in using Allied weapons, and at times traded his Marine uniform for peasant garb to blend in. By war's end, Sterling Hayden had been promoted to captain and awarded the Silver Star for his courage. The citation praised his valor in the face of the enemy on clandestine operations. Indeed, he saw heavy action during the Italian campaign and the final pushes in the Balkans. In later interviews, Hayden spoke of blowing up bridges, dodging Luftwaffe strafing runs, and enduring long marches in freezing Yugoslav winters. His weathered, intense characters in films like The Asphalt Jungle and Dr. Strangelove seemed to carry echoes of those experiences. However, his return to Hollywood was complicated. Haunted by the war, Hayden struggled with the superficiality of Tinseltown. In a twist of fate, shortly after the war, he briefly joined a left-leaning political group, only to be called before the HUAC during the Red Scare. The hero who had risked his life fighting actual fascists was now under suspicion of communist sympathies. Under pressure, Hayden reluctantly testified, an act he later regretted deeply. It was an ironic postscript, an OSS man grilled in Cold War witch hunts. "I was acting," he said bitterly of his congressional testimony, implying that the performance Hollywood forced on him in that hearing was far less noble than his real acting as John Hamilton against the Nazis. In time, Sterling Hayden left acting to sail the world on his boat, seeking the freedom of the open ocean once more. But his war saga remains awe-inspiring. He turned his back on stardom to serve in silence, proving that heroism isn't always spotlight and fanfare. Donovan himself wrote glowingly of Hayden's service, and the Spy Museum in D.C. proudly chronicles his OSS exploits. Today, when fans watch his commanding presence on screen, few realize this handsome hunk once crawled through enemy terrain with a submachine gun in hand. Sterling Hayden's life reminds us that sometimes the bravest character an actor can play is himself, in the real world's most dangerous drama. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler. Shadowed by spy controversy. Errol Flynn's on-screen persona, the devil-may-care hero of Captain Blood and the adventures of Robin Hood, made him an icon of Hollywood's golden age. Yet swirling around his real life was a murkier tale of espionage suspicions and conspiracy. Errol Flynn was never a confirmed spy, but accusations have dogged his legacy for decades. Some claim he sympathized with Nazis and even fed them information, while others vehemently defend him as an Allied patriot. The truth remains elusive, locked behind conflicting testimonies. What is beyond doubt is that Flynn's globe-trotting life intersected with the world of spies and political intrigue, making him one of Hollywood's most controversial rumored spies. During World War II, while many stars enlisted, Flynn's poor health kept him from military service.
Congratulations, Major Vickers.
Major? Why, thank you, sir. I haven't seen his motors yet.
You will tomorrow.
A fact that frustrated him and raised eyebrows in equal measure. He continued acting in war films, but off-screen his name became entangled in spy chatter. In the late 1930s, Flynn had befriended a man named Dr. Hermann Erben, an Austrian with ties to Nazi officials. This friendship later fueled suspicion. Erben turned out to be a Nazi spy, and gossip arose that Flynn might have been complicit. A controversial 1980 biography by Charles Hayden went so far as to accuse Errol Flynn of being a Nazi agent who secretly assisted the German Abwehr. Hayden claimed to have found evidence that Flynn passed coded messages and even planned to help Nazis escape Allied capture. However, subsequent researchers debunked many of these claims, showing that Hayden's evidence was circumstantial or misrepresented. They argue Flynn was essentially guiltless, a man whose main crime was being apolitical and associating with some unsavory characters during his adventures. Indeed, Flynn spent time in Spain during its civil war and in Cuba. He was drawn to excitement, not ideology. It appears more likely that British intelligence actually kept tabs on Flynn as a possible Nazi sympathizer, but no formal charges or proof of espionage ever emerged. The FBI and MI5 files on Flynn, partially released, show suspicion, but nothing conclusive. In fact, one detailed examination titled Errol Flynn, the Spy Who Never Was, convincingly demonstrated that the allegations of Nazi collaboration were very weak or unsupported by credible evidence. What we do know is that Errol Flynn's life during World War II had some strange intersections. He was friendly with William Stevenson and even offered to help the Allies by using his yacht to patrol for Japanese submarines on the West Coast, an offer politely declined due to his health. Later, in the 1950s, Flynn found himself in the company of Cuban rebels.
A minute at that time, even in this house, in the street, everywhere. I know Surratt and I know what he'd do. You know I'm right, Doctor. I want you to get her out of town. And stay out of town until I send for you.
He interviewed Fidel Castro just after the revolution. These exploits show a man drawn to revolutionary fervor and drama. Perhaps that's why the rumors stick. Errol Flynn lived as large as his legend, so people are inclined to believe even the wildest stories about him. To this day, the question lingers in Hollywood lore. Was Errol Flynn a traitor, or just tragically misunderstood? Most historians lean toward the latter, labeling him a scapegoat of rumor. But the very fact that a major star could be suspected of espionage in wartime underscores the paranoia and complexity of that era.
Do you remember my father used to be professor of biology at Queen's? He always used to say, man is a savage animal who periodically, to relieve his nervous tension.
Flynn himself never got to rebut the claims. Those close to him swore he hated fascism and that Captain Blood himself would never betray his mates. Still, The dual image of Errol Flynn makes for a tantalizing entry in the annals of Hollywood spies. Even if, in his case, the cloak and dagger may be more smoke than fire. Leslie Howard, the gentleman actor on a deadly mission. Leslie Howard's refined face is immortalized as Ashley Wilkes in Gone with the Wind.
When the end does come, I shall be far away. It'll be a comfort to me to know that she has you. You will promise, won't you?
The very picture of a genteel Southern aristocrat. In reality, the British actor was a passionate anti-fascist who put himself in peril during World War II. Leslie Howard took on covert assignments for British intelligence, and it may have cost him his life. His mysterious death in 1943, when his commercial airliner was shot down by German fighters, has long fueled speculation that Howard was targeted due to his espionage activities. By the early 1940s, Howard had put aside much of his acting to assist Britain in wartime. He got involved in making anti-Nazi propaganda films and broadcasts, becoming a prominent voice of British propaganda. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, loathed Howard. One of Howard's films featured him helping refugees escape Nazi Europe, which Goebbels publicly railed against. The British government also recognized Howard's value as a cultural emissary. In 1943, Howard embarked on a tour of neutral Spain and Portugal. Officially, he went to promote British films and lectures. Unofficially, he was networking with sympathetic figures behind the scenes. He held private meetings with Spanish aristocrats and politicians, subtly countering German influence and boosting pro-Allied sentiment. There are accounts that he carried messages between British diplomats and Spanish contacts, effectively acting as a courier in diplomats' clothing. British intelligence files suggest Howard's trip was more than cultural goodwill. He was gathering intel on Axis activities in Spain, which was officially neutral, but leaning toward the Axis early in the war. Howard's star power opened doors. Spanish society welcomed the Hollywood celeb, not suspecting he might be picking up wartime gossip at dinners. It's even said he delivered a personal message from Winston Churchill to General Francisco Franco, warning the Spaniards against aiding Hitler. If true, that's the kind of mission spies undertake, not civilian actors. On June 1, 1943, Howard boarded BOAC Flight 777 from Lisbon to London, a flight that would never arrive. German fighters patrolling the Bay of Biscay intercepted and shot down the DC-3 plane, killing all aboard, including Leslie Howard. The world was shocked. Why would the Luftwaffe deliberately attack an unarmed civilian aircraft? Immediately, theories arose. One was that the Germans believed Churchill was secretly on that plane. Another, more chilling theory, Leslie Howard himself was the target, due to his propaganda work and alleged spying. German documents later revealed that Nazi high command viewed Leslie Howard as, quote, Britain's most dangerous propagandist. They knew of his activities and may have decided to eliminate him. The British government, for moral reasons, kept details quiet. Officially, Howard's death was chalked up as a tragic incident of war. Leslie Howard thus became one of the few major film stars to die in direct connection to World War II. Whether he was specifically assassinated for espionage is still debated by historians. What's undeniable is that he was doing risky work in a war zone.
Poetry, His Royal Highness does nothing of the kind. He says it's not so bad. And nothing in the world is so bad as something which is not so bad.
Far beyond what was expected of an actor, he helped to make anti-German propaganda and shore up support for the Allies, such that 2 years after his death, a British yearbook lauded his contributions as one of the most valuable facets of British propaganda. He was rumored to have been involved with British intelligence, and these rumors have considerable weight given the circumstances. The tale of Leslie Howard is poignant. A gentle, intellectual man who fiercely fought with the weapons of information and culture, and who met a heroic end not on screen, but in the skies of a real war. Some call him a martyr to the Allied cause. In one of his final radio broadcasts, Howard said, "We die on the same day we stop fighting tyranny." By that measure, he never truly died. His legacy lives on in celluloid and in the annals of Secret Service valor, a fallen star-turned spy whose light was snuffed out too soon.